Hi there, I'm Em. Welcome to the Professionals Recovery Room. There is something that almost every burned out professional struggles with, even if they don't realize it. Boundaries. Not the kind that push people away, but the kind that protect your time, energy, and peace so that you can function as your better self. Let me just start with a quick scenario. Your coworker asks you to stay late again. They want you to help with a project, and you're exhausted. You've barely slept this week, your home life needs your attention, and you don't know if you have it in you tonight. But you say yes anyway, because you don't want to seem rude or selfish or like you're not a team player. Have you ever done that? Have you ever said yes to keep the peace, but at the cost of your own? If so, you're definitely not alone, and it may be time to set a boundary. So what is a boundary? A boundary is just a line that helps you protect something important. That something is your energy, your time, and your mental health. Now, they're not walls, they're definitely not punishments, and they're not dramatic ultimatums. They're limits that keep you safe and whole in your relationships, at work, and in life. And here's an important point. Boundaries are about you, not about controlling or changing anyone else. They're how you choose to respond and what you need to feel safe and supported, and how you communicate with that clarity. People are not mind readers. Clear communication of where your limits are is healthy, and it's not a failure. Don't assume that if people cared about you, that they wouldn't need you to set a boundary. And don't think that once you set a boundary, that people will just automatically respect it. You have to establish, communicate, and reinforce your boundaries, especially if the dynamic has been one-sided for a long time. It's not just new to you, it's new to everybody else as well. And remember, it's not about pushing people away. It's about showing up for yourself so you can show up better everywhere else for everyone else. Because according to Psychology Today, people with weak boundaries often take responsibilities that aren't theirs, leading to stress, overwork, and yes, eventually burnout. And a study from the Thriving Center of Psychology found that only 14% of people feel confident in setting boundaries. That means 86% of us are struggling to speak up for our own needs, especially women who reported even lower confidence. And you need boundaries at home and work. Boundaries are healthy and essential for your well-being. Without them, you'd be overextended, overcommitted, and you'd be slowly burning out. So if you're feeling stretched thin or emotionally fried, your boundaries might be part of that reason. But why is it so hard to set boundaries? Well, many of us aren't even fully aware what we need. How do you set boundaries if you don't know what those should be? And then some people, there's a fear of conflict or rejection. Having low self-esteem is directly correlated to not setting healthy boundaries. In a study from the Journal of Humanistic Psychology, it was found that people with lower self-worth often have more permeable mental boundaries. That means they're more likely to absorb stress and less likely to say no. So in a world where we're constantly being told that we're not good enough, it's not surprising that we wouldn't see ourselves as valuable enough to put our needs first and not worry about what everyone else thinks about us, whether what they're thinking is real or just perceived. I mean, it could be that someone is fine with you setting boundaries, but you never set them because you assumed that they wouldn't be okay with it. So it's time to take stock of what we truly need in order to feel whole and healthy, and put that down on paper. Release the fear and just start with that one small step. And that might be hard for you because you think that boundaries are selfish. The truth is, boundaries protect your energy so you can fully show up at work, at home, in your relationships. How would everyone feel if you showed up happy and healthy, ready to go? I bet they would forget about the fact that you kept some boundary the night before, or be glad that you kept that boundary so that they can enjoy you in your positive presence today. If you tell your boss, your coworker, your family member that your plate is full and you can't do X, Y, or Z, then they have a chance to implement a backup plan. Rather, be upfront and expect that they would understand. So when you are ready to use those boundaries, it's really important to know when to use them. You should use boundaries when you need to protect your energy, time, or mental health. Listen to your body. Listen to how you feel. You're going to know when you're reaching your limit. Also use boundaries when someone consistently oversteps your limits. They obviously don't understand the impact that they're having, or they may not care. So make sure you're holding to your boundaries because they won't. Use boundaries when you feel resentful, overwhelmed, and emotionally checked out. These are times you need to recharge. You can't be your best self when you're going through these moments without taking care of yourself. Also, make sure you use boundaries when you need to clarify expectations with others to reduce stress. Here's an example. You've been answering work messages at night. A boundary might sound like, I'll be offline from 6 p.m. unless it's urgent. Otherwise, I'll respond in the morning. It's fair. It gives room that you're doing your job, but it's also setting a boundary so that you can be your best self, reduce your stress, and recharge for the evening. But sometimes boundaries might not be your first move. So let's talk about when boundaries aren't the fix. When the issue is confusion, not violation, start with a conversation. This is one that really hits home with me because I see it so often. How can anyone with good intention know for sure what will hurt you? So give them the benefit of the doubt and start with communication and open dialogue. Another time boundaries are not the fix is when the system is broken, and we see this all the time. In that case, you may need advocacy or structural change. It may not sit with you to make the boundary because it's so entrenched in the system. This is one of those times you may need to rethink your approach or where you're at. For example, if the place of employment is requiring everyone to go into the office every day, it's probably not a good idea to state that your boundary is that you need to work from home. That said, I'm not talking about a medical accommodation. That is a different discussion altogether. But in general, this is a work policy that's being implemented throughout the entire company, so it probably isn't best that you're setting a boundary. It's also not time for a boundary when you're avoiding vulnerability. You have to ask yourself whether it's a boundary or a fear. And sometimes this can seem gray or confusing. But for example, if you're saying that you don't want to talk about the future of your relationship or something of that nature, that's likely a fear. But a boundary is more like, I don't want to talk about our relationship on Mondays because I'm exhausted at the beginning of the week. So you're not afraid of something or avoiding something. You're just saying, I have a boundary because the beginning of my week is busy, so not then. Let's do it at some other time. A good way to look at this is the boundary about protecting my peace or avoiding something uncomfortable? And when you think through that and weigh it, you should be able to decipher whether this is a boundary or not. Remember, boundaries are a form of self-leadership. They allow you to show up with clarity, calm, and confidence without running on empty. They're not about control, they're about care. And the people who really care about you, they'll respect them even if it takes a little adjusting. In our next episode, we'll get even more practical, and I'll walk you through how to identify where your boundaries are missing, how to start setting them with confidence, and how to handle pushback with clarity, not fear. Until then, you can visit SYMECC.com for tools and support for your healing, or join me on Facebook at SYME Professional Coaching and Consulting. You're doing the work, and it matters.